Hey guys, this is Martin Perdomo, the Elite Strategist, your host of Latinos in Real Estate Investing podcast, where individuals come to learn how to create wealth through real estate investing. And today I have a good friend, Neil Schoepp. And Neil has spent 40 years in New York City, where he grew up and hit every kid exacta. Is that what you have here, Neil? Exacta?
Yes.
He first became a police officer and then a fireman. Through his 24 years of work in the streets of New York, he came face to face with fear and found numerous ways of harnessing its power and using that power to take action instead of becoming frozen by it. Neil is a conquest to help people to use the energy created by fear to push through and achieve the life they deserve. Neil is a mindset mentor, and as you guys may or may not know, I am all about the mindset stuff. My brother, thank you for coming here today. Thank you for sharing. This is your second time on the podcast. Neil was one of my first guests almost 2.5 years ago when I first started this podcast. And Neil's a good friend, a brother, and wanted to get him back on here. My brother, thank you. Welcome. And I'm sure that I didn't do enough justice when I introduced you. Tell us a little bit more about yourself, my friend.
It's great to be here, Martin. Thanks for having me.
You're welcome, my brother.
You kind of summed it up. I hit every kid's exacta. I use that example because I grew up in Queens, New York, out by Aqueduct Racetrack, which is now a casino. It's not a racetrack anymore.
Yeah, I remember that.
And every little kid wanted to be a cop and a fireman when they grew up, and I actually made that happen. And I made that happen. It kind of just happened, right? Life just embraced what my qualities were, what I loved doing. And life put me in a position where I could take advantage of that opportunity. And it just kind of happened. It just unfolded. And that's what happens in life a lot of times.
I know you and I have had these conversations before, and you come from not much, right? We come from humble beginnings, both of us, working class families, and you're also a real estate guy, which we did not mention in your introduction there. So that's important context for people to know. What do you find is the biggest challenge that people have when they come to you? Hey, Neil, I want a goal of 50 units or 100 units, or I have this goal. What do you find is people's biggest challenge to reach those goals when it comes to the mindset?
They get a lot of limiting beliefs, a lot of mind blocks, only view things through one lens. And that's the lens that society has really placed upon them. So when I was first learning real estate, I didn't know anything about mindset, honestly. I was doing some of it in my previous life as a cop and a fireman. And I left that W-2 because I wanted more, right? And that more was multifamily. When I went into multifamily, I learned the pillar of mindset. And the things that I had to break through was all of those limiting beliefs I had. And those limiting beliefs were placed upon me because I was listening to society. I was listening to my neighbors. I was listening, quite frankly, to my father. My father gave me a lot of my limiting beliefs. And one of those biggest limiting beliefs was people always have an angle. People are always going to be out to get you. And that gives you, okay, so now how do I enter into a partnership? It makes it very difficult to enter into a partnership because I believe that partner isn't coming to me looking to truly add value. They're coming to me to take advantage. What's his angle? Is he going to take my money and run? Like, what's going on here? And once I broke through those limiting beliefs that were placed upon me, both from family and society, it was off to the races. Like, people are actually out there that really do want to add value, make the pie bigger. They want to help you out. They want to pull you up the mountain. It really does happen. And once I was in that environment, everything was so much easier.
How do people even know that they have a limiting belief, right? Because some people don't even know they have limiting beliefs. First of all, we all have them, right?
Yes.
Doesn't matter the level. We all have them. I always say that there's two reasons why we don't have what we want yet, right? Our goals is because something you're not doing, so action, or something you don't know that you should be doing, something just a basic skill that you don't know.
First, challenge every thought you have, right?
Okay.
I run my thoughts through something I call the triple F system that I designed, and it's focus, facts, and feelings. So I'll list out a thought that I have, and then I'll list the facts that I associate with that thought. And I'll list the feelings that are conjured up in me when I think about those facts and that thought.
Okay.
Do those feelings make you excited, or are you sad, angry, and frustrated? Then I'll change that thought, right? I'll flip it 180 degrees, and I'll say that instead of saying I can't buy real estate, I'll say that I can buy real estate. I change that can't to a can. And then I list the facts that show me that I can buy real estate.
So I'm gonna give you an example. I'm a listener right now, or I'm watching this on YouTube or wherever this content is being consumed right now. And I am working at the Dollar General.
Yes.
Okay. Right. Because you and I are woo-woo, right? So we understand certain things. So some people could be like, well, how the hell is that possible? I'm working at the Dollar General and I'm making $12 an hour, right? Whatever it is, I'm barely making it. Right. Let's go nitty gritty here. Let's go real talk here. Right.
Mm-hmm.
I'm barely making it. I'm struggling. I have this real desire. Right. And I'm listening to this guy, Neil, on this podcast, and I'm saying, okay, great. This is great that you're saying. Okay, now I figure out what I'm thinking. How does that make me feel? It does make me feel good, sad, or angry, whatever you just said. I can buy real estate, but my reality is I'm broke. And I reject that for the listeners or you and myself. The reality is that person is broke. Like, I'm barely paying my bills, man.
I'm going to answer that in two parts. The first part is, do you actually need money in your bank to buy real estate?
Love it.
I'm gonna challenge that individual that way.
But if they say, well, I need 20%, right? The bank says I need 20% to put down to buy this house. So I think you do, right? I think I do.
That's another limiting belief placed upon individuals by society, right? Society says, traditional banks say you need 5, 10, 15, 20% down to buy a property, but you're listening to like banks. Yeah, they want you to put 20% down because they want you to finance that property through them and they want to secure their loan. Start challenging all of your thoughts. Do I really need money? Yes, you need money to buy real estate, but it doesn't necessarily have to be your money. So those individuals can bring individuals like us a deal. And if it's a deal, they can partner with us. They can JV with us, right? They can go out and get private money loans. So there are 100 different strategies that they could use. That's challenging that limiting belief straight out. The step-by-step granular things that I would do if I was that individual is I would change my environment, not my physical environment, like where I live, though you could do that. I would start watching YouTube videos that are talking about securing real estate and acquiring real estate. I would start showing up at meetups. You do a meetup in Stroudsburg, right? Show up at that meetup. Start talking to individuals that are actually doing what you would like to do. The real estate world, we're in a community here, you and I, that will just give. And I'm talking about this specific community because, there are scams out there. That was one of my limiting beliefs. Everybody's going to scam me. I can't go, like, real estate's all about guys that scam.
I think that's the New Yorker in you, brother, and the police officer in you, too.
100%. My father literally told me when I was growing up, everybody's got a scam. Watch out. And in addition to that, I'd go to Manhattan and I'd watch them play 3-card Monte. And I'd watch people get scammed. And then I was a cop. And that cop, I was responding to people getting scammed all the time. So holy cow, like what my father's saying is absolutely true. And I'm seeing this firsthand.
Cognitive bias.
It took a long time to chip away at that wall. But change your environment. Start going to real estate meetings. And if that meeting that you show up at, if they're trying to sell you stuff, don't go back. Find another meeting. Because there's plenty of meetings out there where people actually want to help you and add value to you and bring you aboard, right? You'll go to a meeting, start talking to individuals, listen to them, listen to what they need, right? Somebody's going to say one day, I have more leads than I can handle. Let me help you file those leads. Let me help you filter through those leads. Let me go door knocking for you. You have more properties than you can get through. Well, then I have time. Give me your list and I will go literally door knock, like pull up in front of somebody's house, go knock on the door and start a conversation with them. There's plenty of ways that you can change your environment, get around people that are doing what you want to do, and then just emulate what they're doing.
Absolutely. Model success, my brother. I want to share a quick story, which is pertinent to you and I, about showing up to meetups. And I don't know if I shared this with you. I shared it on this podcast before. I met Neil because he used to host a meetup up in his town in Milford, Pennsylvania. And one day, I remember being at a traffic light, and it's about 5 o'clock because you used to start at 6, right, Neil? Was it 6 o'clock? You used to start 6 or 7 o'clock? 7 o'clock. So it was 6 o'clock in the winter. And I'm at a light in front of a supermarket, Price Chopper. If I go left, I'm home in 5 minutes. If I go straight, in Neil's meetup in 35, 40 minutes. And I'm at this light and I'm saying, should I go home, right? Go get comfortable, be in my bed, cozy with my wife, watch a little TV, or go straight to this meetup? And I remember vividly the conversation I had in my head, and the answer, the answer to myself was, show up, go. There's something for you there. Literally, that's what my unconscious mind said to me. I heard it was go, keep going, show up. There's something for you there. So I show up to this meetup with Neil. It was like no other meetup, but that day I met two people. I met Dr. G, right?
Yep.
Dr. G. And I met this other girl, Victor's wife. I forget her name.
Danielle.
Yes, Danielle. That's right. Victor's wife. Yep, Danielle. Yes. And I met Danielle that day, right? And I was just about to start my meetup here in Strasbourg. Because I showed up on that day, because I decided to show up, Danielle, her husband became my contractor. We did a bunch of deals together. I met her at your meetup. We did about 5 or 6 deals together.
Yep,
Victor's
a great guy.
Yeah, Victor and I. And then Dr. G showed up to my meetup, right? And where she met a few months later, she met her future partner at my meetup. So just think about the impact that Neil had indirectly for hosting this meetup, and because I showed up there, right? He held the space for it. I showed up, and look at the impact it had because of it. So, I got Mark and G became partners. They own, I think, 10 or 12 doors today. And how many lives are impacted because of that? Because I listened to that voice saying, show up, go show up. So my point to just kind of illuminate what Neil just said is, show up to these meetups, man. Show up to these meetups. You just never know what can show up there for you.
It goes even further than just showing up, right? Showing up is the easy piece. Following up is the hard piece. So don't just show up and be in the room. When you meet individuals, follow up with those individuals, because that's where the relationship is really built. It's in that follow-up. I can't tell you how many times I've given someone my number, or I suggested a book to read or an action to take, and they never followed up. Follow-up is extremely important.
There's a saying that I've heard over the years, and is, especially in the United States of America, you beat 50% of people just by showing up. Because a lot of people don't even want to show up.
Yes.
And I see it, and you're an entrepreneur, you own different businesses. How many people you invite for interviews and don't show up. They don't even show up. They don't even, I mean, you took the time, applied and all this. You didn't even show up. That's horrible. Is what I tell my salespeople. Guys, you never know. Show up. Yep. Show up to the appointment. You never know what is going to come out of it. You have to show up. What is this fast card thing you're talking about that you've created? Tell me about it. What does it stand for? How does it work?
It's how I look at goals and setting goals. It's similar. Everybody knows SMART, right? SMART goals. So the first part of it, the fast, is very similar to the SMART goal system. The car is really the action steps. So fast cars, right? Focused, achievable, specific, time-driven. Talk about the first part. So is your goal very focused on what you want to achieve. So you could say, I want money, right? But that's not very focused. How are you going to get that money? So just being focused on what area you're going to work on. Is it achievable to you, right? I always use the example of I'm a 5'5" little guy. I can have the goal to dunk a basketball all I want. It's just not happening, right? As much as I try and jump and touch that hoop, I just can't do it. So is it achievable to you? If it's not achievable, then just chunk it down a little bit. Break it down one more step. Specific. Going back to that money, instead of saying, I want more money, I will have $100,000 in my bank account by September 30th. And that September 30th is the T in fast, time bound or time driven. When you put that deadline on it, it tells your mind, well, I have to focus on this. I have to get there. The car part of it is consistency, accountability, and responsibility. You can have the best written goal in the world. I'm going to have $100,000 by September 30th through acquiring 10 doors in Stroudsburg. That's a pretty specific goal, right? The amount of money, how I'm going to do it, and the date. Complete laser focus. But if you don't take consistent action on that, if you don't make calls to brokers, you don't start compiling your sellers list, you don't reach out to sellers. If you're not taking consistent action on that, it's never going to happen. Holding yourself accountable is how you're going to force yourself to take that consistent action. So if I tell someone that this is what I'm going to do, and I ask them to check in with me every so often via text, phone call, or email, so that I have to tell them, oh, I said I was going to do this. I said I was going to reach out to 10 sellers this week. Now I have to be held accountable. I have to call Martin, and Martin's going to ask me, well, did you call 10 sellers? I can't tell Martin no. So putting that pressure on you. Accountability also is, believe it or not, I'm going to tell you a quick story about this watch that I wear. This watch is part of my accountability. And my mother, this is the last gift my mother ever gave me. And my mother came down with cancer. She was alive St. Patty's Day, and she passed away March 28th. So she was perfectly fine St. Patty's Day. All of a sudden, she was dead March 28th. And when she was in the hospital, in New York City, Sloan Kettering's the best cancer hospital, right? You know that.
Yep.
She had to go out to a cancer hospital out on Long Island. And I asked my sister, why are we sending her out to Long Island? Why aren't we sending her to Sloan Kettering? And they told me that that's where mom's insurance was being accepted. It wasn't, Sloan Kettering didn't accept mom's insurance. And from that point on, I said, I'm always going to be able to write a check, and it's not going to matter. Because if I want my mom to go to Sloan Kettering, I don't want insurance to be the roadblock to that. So when I look at my time and I'm like, am I doing everything I possibly can to hit my goals? This watch jingles on my wrist when I'm sitting on the couch watching Netflix, and I'm like, no, I got to get up and I have to spend the next 10 minutes doing an email to a broker, or I have to spend the next 10 minutes reaching out to somebody I met at a real estate meeting, or I have to research what is the next conference I'm going to be going to grow my skill set out, because I'm always going to be able to write that check. So that's the accountability part. And then just taking personal responsibility, doing what you say you're going to do when you're going to do it. When you take that responsibility, it takes a lot of stress off of you, because this is just what I do. This is just how I do it. Whether that's writing a paragraph a day, taking notes, watching a video, listening to a podcast, whatever it is, but taking responsibility for what you set out to do.
Yeah, that I love that. I hope that the listeners are taking notes, and those are really good nuggets that you just shared there, my brother. I wanna switch over a little bit and talk about the current environment and the real estate market. What's happening? We're starting to see some softening now in the market,
Yes.
and I want to ask you, right? Because okay, you and I've had this conversation off air, at previous conversations where I personally believe that after the election here coming in a few weeks in November, the midterms, that I believe that personally that all the true data is going to be put out to it through mainstream media of what's really happening in the economy. We've had two consecutive negative quarters of GDP, which concludes that that's the definition of a recession. However, we have still unemployment still very low, which is what they're holding on to. That is not a recession, because for every person looking for a job, there's two jobs available out, right? So it's starting to slowly come out, right? Some of the big employers are starting to lay people off, and some of the bankers. I don't know if you saw this. I saw this morning. The bankers, a bunch of bankers were called on by Congress, and they had to testify in front of Congress on what's going on, and they all gave their sentiments that this increase in interest rates is going to cause. They feel it's going to cause a recession. How does one? Those of us that are listening, paying attention, because I'm going to assume that most people that are listening to this podcast are people that I talk about this stuff on this podcast all the time. So my listeners, I know, are educated because I'm educating them on this stuff. So as this stuff becomes more mainstream and it starts to be more on the mainstream media, we've had sales are down on the single family, cap rates are starting to decompress, right? So we're starting to see a lot of shift in the economy. And how does one manage their mindset during a recessionary period to come out on top, right? What strategies could you give to someone to be able to capitalize? As you and I both know, more millionaires are made during a recession than in any other time period, right?
Yes.
So how does one do that? Because I remember the last recession, brother. I was one of those that was in limbo, right? That's when I stopped listening to the news, by the way, was last recession. I realized what it was doing to my body, like how I was feeling, like watching the news, hooked to the news. And I was in the mortgage business. Looked at the news every day. I was like, no, I can't do this anymore. This stuff is really messing me up. What I didn't have was skill set. I didn't know how to get better. So what do you advise to people, being a mindset guy? How does one manage and navigate that and come out on top when the storm really hits? And I believe we're in the beginning of the storm, personally.
Yes. We are in the beginning of the storm. I'm going to reiterate something that you said. You said most millionaires are made in a recession.
Mm-hmm.
Most millionaires are made in a recession. Think about that. Let that sink in. Because that's the truth. So that's one piece to it. When I start getting nervous, I will think about that. I will think about companies, FedEx, right? Uber. I believe Disney.
Mm-hmm.
I knew the list, but there's a lot of big time companies that were started in a recession.
Mm-hmm.
And they are big household names. So go out and research that. And what that research is going to do is it's going to put your mind at ease. Like recessions aren't a bad thing. Wealthy people love recessions, as crazy as that sounds, because they know what levers are being pulled. And they know that, all right, like right now, I'm just waiting for the market to go down. The market's going to go down. In my opinion, the Dow is going to go down to 22,000. It's going to, when it really comes, when the shit really hits the fan, the market's going to sink another 20 to 30%.
Holy smokes, that's a bold prediction, brother.
When we've been in a recession like we are now, regardless of what the media is telling you, this is a recession.
Agreed.
We're there. So when we've been in a recession, that's been this deep for this long, we've always gone deeper. We've always gone further. It's just kind of the natural cycle of things. It's just a cycle, right? When I purchased my first residency, you know what the interest rates were? The first property I ever purchased, I purchased at 6.5% interest. And here we are. 6% interest. Everybody's losing their mind.
It's crazy.
Now, people are going to say, oh, yeah, but the properties were cheaper back then. The properties are more expensive now. But it's all in context, right? We're at 6%. It's a cycle. In the 80s, interest rates were in the teens.
Yep, 15, 16%, baby.
If you ask somebody in the 80s, are interest rates ever going to be 2%? They would have laughed at you. They would have thought you were an alien. So just knowing that it's a cycle and things will even out. We're in the chaos right now, but the smoke will clear. Educate yourself, being in the right environment, and not being afraid to take action. Listen, when I lived through, I had a couple of properties back in 2008 when that mortgage crisis happened, right? And when that mortgage crisis happened, technically, I was underwater, right? My properties lost 50% of their value. But that didn't matter to me because my buy criteria was I'm holding these on the long-term perspective. So my properties were cash flowing because I had tenants in them. As long as they're cash flowing and I can pay those bills, I'm really not underwater, right? Because I buy in markets where I know that value is going to come back. So knowing this and being around people that are doing this is the biggest part to that mindset of, okay, it's going to be all right. Putting yourself around people that have lived through the 2008 crash. Okay, it's going to be all right. Reading the biographies of companies that started when in the time that they started, the world was on fire, right? Amazon, one of the largest online retailers, not one of
the largest.
He is the largest, right? They started in the internet. The internet crash
when the bubble
90s.
happened, when the bubble in the early 2000s.
They started right before that bubble, and now they started their business, and all of a sudden the internet blew up, and they're like, their hair had to be on fire back then. Like, what are we going to do? But things then equal out. Recessions weed out all of the chafe and all of the stuff that's no good. It's the system cleansing itself, and things will come back.
Absolutely. So you said a couple of things there. Educate yourself. Number one, right? And put yourself in the right environments with people that have done it, study businesses that came out of that were built during a recession, and to inspire you, and then put yourself around people that are doing those things so that you can move forward and you're influenced by the right energy.
Yes. Go to Fred, look at the charts. When you go to Fred, they'll show you when all of the recessions happened. This isn't the first recession that we've ever had. There's been plenty of recessions before us, and we've eventually worked through that. Everything's worked through the system, and we've come out on the other end. And I would say educate yourself to position yourself now in the best possible position so that when we start coming out of it, you are already in position to take advantage of that.
Absolutely. All right, my brother. So if I'm going to go back to that $12 an hour guy, right? I'm going to go back to that lower class guy or that middle class guy or a gal that's, hey man, paying their bills. And I'd like to go back there because Middle America is the salt of the earth, right? That's this middle class is the salt of the earth. It's what keeps the engine running. However, we as middle class folks, we have been misinformed and not even misinformed, just not educated on financial stuff, right? So I'm back to that working class person, blue collar guy, whether it's construction, whether it's an office, a secretary, whatever it is, that middle class person. And they're listening to you and they're saying, okay, great, fine, fantastic. Now, how do I position myself to be that person that can get my piece of the pie, right? Maybe they're not looking to be, maybe some people's aspirations are not like my aspiration. My aspirations was I want to be a millionaire and I want to own all these stuff, and they're not as ambitious as me or maybe you, right? But they're like, hey, I want to be comfortable. I want to make enough money where I have enough real estate to take care of my family, and I'm working because I choose to, not because I want to, not because I have to. So how does that person prepare themselves right now? What can that person do right now, brother? Give me some go-to 1, 2, 3 nuggets right now they can start doing today to be that person in 6 months or a year. Hopefully, my hopes is that we'll be coming out of it. I don't know. I think we'll be in it knee deep in 6 months from now, but
I think it's going to be a couple of years before we come out of it.
Yeah. How does that person then, anchor and get themselves in the right place?
So I'm going to throw a lot of stuff out there because there's people who are at different stages of their life, right? So if you're that teenage kid, right, like that 20-year-old just got out of high school, you feel like you're in that dead-end job and you want more, it all starts first with education, right? Mm-hmm. Pick one strategy, whatever that is, the stock market, index funds, real estate. Pick one strategy and then just do an all-immersive deep dive into that. We know that interest rates are squeezing out buyers, right? Interest rates are squeezing out home buyers. Those home prices are going to start coming down. The property owners of those homes are going to start feeling that squeeze. So educate yourself on how to buy a home seller financed or creatively, as opposed to going through the lending institutions. Why? Because then when that pain really comes and those houses become more and more frequent, you could just step in and solve somebody's problem. You could help them out. Maybe you're just somebody that wants to squirrel away a little money. Maybe the 401, I'm not a big 401 guy. I actually am anti-401 if you're looking to really educate yourself. But if you're just someone that just wants to squirrel money away and don't really want to think about it, I'm not really worried about expanding my wealth, I just want to have a nest egg, then maybe you just learn the 401k play. Maybe you just do index funds, and that's index great. Funds just follow the Dow or the S&P 500. They mimic the movements of those. That's where I would start. I would really start on the education of it, and then where do I want to go? Do I want to go the stocks? Do I want to go the real estate? And if you're looking to go real estate, what strategy in real estate? But do a head dive, immersive education into that.
That is super valuable. Super. That is the gold right there, guys. That is absolutely the gold. I mean, focus, pick a strategy, focus, educate, and go do. I love the creative financing, seller finance. There's going to be, you heard it here. There's going to be a ton of opportunities. You heard it from my brother here, Neil.
We're talking about it before we jumped on this call. We were just talking about it.
Yeah.
Put as many tools in your tool belt so that you can handle whatever comes at you. Mm-hmm. Because when you're in this environment, people are going to run into problems. They're not going to be able to solve that problem. If you have the tool in your tool belt, you could step in and help that person out. and that person will then give you a consultant fee, or you just do it out of the value of it. There's plenty of ways to skin the cat.
Neil, I just in my last meetup that I had last week or earlier this week. It was earlier this week.
Yeah, Tuesday.
Yeah, or Tuesday, earlier this week. This meetup, I was talking about how to thrive in a recession. And point number one, which I'm going to make a whole podcast about it here soon. Point number one is what you just said. The market will only reward you according to the value that you bring to it. Meaning, if I want the market to reward me, regardless of the economic conditions, I must first become valuable. How do I become valuable? That means I got to improve my skills. I got to become a master of something. I got to really beef up my skills. And that's what Neil is telling you here. Go and learn a skill, become valuable to the market, because regardless of what happens in the economic environment, if you're valuable to the market, if you have a skill that's valuable to the space, you will make money. You will thrive. Right, my brother? Is that right or right?
You absolutely will. Listen, we have 168 hours in a week. When you break that out, it comes out to roughly 30 hours a week are available to us to use how we see fit. Are you using that time, that 30 hours, to watch Netflix, to scroll through social media, to see how many likes you got on Instagram? Or are you using those 30 hours to build out your skill set, to build out your network? Mm-hmm. I could pick up my phone and solve any real estate problem that comes across my desk just by making a phone call, because I have that network now. I didn't always have that network, but I built that network out because I didn't choose to sit on the couch and watch Netflix. I chose to attend conferences. I chose to attend real estate meetups. I chose to build relationships with the people that I was meeting. Absolutely.
Absolutely. My brother, thank you so much for showing up and coming on here and sharing your insights, your wisdom, your nuggets. You gave a lot of really, really, really powerful stuff. And if someone's listening and they want to maybe hire you as their mindset coach, maybe they want to bring you on. And I know you have a passion for the youth and helping young people. You and I have talked about that in the past. But if someone is interested in maybe bringing you on, right, to talk a speaking engagement or as a consultant to go and consult for them, how can they get a hold of you? Where can they reach Neil?
They can reach me, Neil, Neil, at neilschoepp.com. So it's Neil at neilschoepp.com. That's my direct email. I don't have a VA that answers that. I answer that. You're talking directly to me. I'm on Facebook. Neil Schoepp is the coaching page, and I do YouTube videos. Neil Schoepp again on YouTube. I'm here to add value. I'm here to that ripple effect. I get a huge high. The story that you told earlier about Dr. G meeting Mark and you meeting Victor, Daniela, which turned out to be one of your key contractors, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
That makes all of the planning, all of the work, all of the phone calls that goes beyond putting that meeting together. It makes it all worth it, because that's the ripple effect. My one action added value, and people are now, Dr. G's phenomenal, right? Like Dr. G's buying properties. And she didn't think, when she first came to that meeting, she didn't think that she was in a position that she'd be able to dig herself out of the position she was in. And she did it. And she did it because she took action. Absolutely. She did it because she showed up.
Yep. And you were the catalyst to all that. You held the space, brother. So thank you to you, because you holding the space, you doing that has impact, and it's exactly your intentions, has had a rippled impact.
It's that ripple.
It's just had a rippled impact. And guys, thank you guys for listening. Well, this episode was all about skills, and while we're talking about skills and we're mentioning skills, I want to take a quick moment here to remind you that I have my how to get your first deal in 60 off market deal in 60-day course. You can go check it out in the show notes. There's going to be a link below here. So go check that out. This is the time to start learning how to get better. In that course, I share all of my nuggets, like how I started. How one of the things that I share in that course is, hey, show up to meetups, and I tell you why. And exactly the reason why, this is how I met Neil. He's a perfect example of why you show up to meetups. He was the host, and he held that space together. So again, in that course, I share all of those nuggets. I share some easy ways to get some low hanging fruits and find some off market deals. So make sure you go check that out, my brother. Thank you so much for being here. And guys, listeners, if you're listening to us on a podcast platform, make sure you give us a 5-star review. And if you're watching this on YouTube, make sure you like and subscribe and leave us a comment, and let's talk about it. Neil's going to be tagged on this. On this video. So Neil be there to answer any questions that you may have. My brother, thank you for coming through today. Again, of course, we're going to have you back here. I'm going to have you back here when we're in the thick of this thing next year sometime, so we could talk about, hey, how we could calm people's amygdalas down, because some people are gonna be freaking out next year this time. My brother, thank you so much.
Absolutely.
Appreciate
It's great to be here, Martin.
Thank you, my friend.
Go out and crush it, guys.
Thank you guys for watching. If you want to continue to watch videos like this one, make sure you click this video right up here. I think you might like it. Also, if you want to learn how to create wealth through real estate investing, make sure you check out my online course. The links to that course is down below, where I share with you how to get your first deal within 60 days. Thank you for watching. And again, peace out.